Plus, sex-related charges and organizational reputation. How hard is it for individuals and corporations to recover? We'll hear from an employment lawyer with personal experience. Welcome back. Well, even if he's eventually acquitted, Dominique Strauss-Kahn's reputation will likely be marred forever by the allegations of sexual assault. Our next guest has experienced firsthand the effect sexual harassment allegations can have. David Cowling is a lawyer specializing in labor and employment law. 2 years ago, he faced accusations of harassment by a woman at his law firm. He was exonerated, but still suffers the stigma associated with the charges. Great to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Oh, this is something that we've seen over and over again, and there are some high-profile examples. And I suppose we should make the distinction between those that are found to be unfounded and those that perhaps are not unfounded. Regardless, the allegation is enough to really undo somebody's life.
Sure, employers in all walks are faced with these kinds of challenges where people make complaints of all sorts. They make complaints that are in good faith and in bad faith, whether they're human rights complaints, disability complaints, workers' compensation complaints, and these are the kind of issues that employers are faced. Now they have to, one of the tasks that they're charged with are trying to distinguish between those that are in good faith and those that are not.
You have this personal take on this, so I want to just dwell on the personal for a minute here.
Sure.
In the end, to say you're exonerated, what does that make a difference to your family, to your career? What do you get back?
Well, sure, that is very helpful, obviously, to me to be able to say that I was exonerated of any wrongdoing. The taint, though, is a problem and sticks with you, and it's a difficult one to overcome. One of the things I think in our society, and just dealing with Mr. Strauss-Kahn, is there needs to be a presumption of innocence, and we need to make sure we keep track of that value when we're assessing people and dealing with issues. And when we're dealing with these kinds of complaints, we need to look at not just the complainant's interests, but the accused interests as well. And employers that are dealing with these issues need to keep that perspective in mind.
So from the point of view of the employer and how they make sure that there's some kind of parameters, so that there's some way to respond to these things that doesn't blow up somebody's life or doesn't ruin a career, are there things you can do in advance, or is it case by case? Sure,
there's lots of things you can do in advance. You can have well thought out policies. You can also have a vision for your company.
Yeah.
These are challenging times, undoubtedly, when your organization is faced with a complaint of this kind of nature, particularly a sexual harassment complaint, which is a subset, I think, of these other kinds of complaints. They go to the very heart of a supervisory-employee relationship oftentimes, and they're a direct challenge on the integrity of the organization. How that organization handles it, I think, is a real either credit or discredit to an organization, and one has to be very careful about what one's vision is for dealing with those kinds of issues.
Well, just to go back to because I think the story around your law firm and what happened would resonate with a lot of people on Bay Street, on Wall Street, which is that it was a party. And part of the complaint centered on how much drinking there was and how intoxicated these young staffers got. And, you know, you can read about it and say, okay, that doesn't sound appropriate. But if you ask people who work at a law firm, do you want your law firm never again to throw a party for you folks? They're probably not going to say yes, right? How do you draw the line between behavior that is, you know, acceptable to everybody at all times, and actually, you know, fostering good morale and all of the rest of this nice stuff that you want to do for your employees?
Yeah, sure, and this was a party that had gone on for 10 years. This, for Matthews, Dinsdale and Clark, the law firm that I've left now, that was a marquee event. It had gone on for a long time. I don't think it's necessary. False complaints could have arisen, though, in any circumstance. They could have arisen as a result of a drive to a hearing, for example, in my world, where a lawyer, and you could have had those things. So the context could have been anywhere. It happened to be that party. And
you don't think it was exacerbated by some of those details, that didn't kind of inflame the whole situation?
Well, as I say, I think it could have happened anywhere. The complainant was at risk of having her job was in jeopardy, and so I think that undoubtedly bore some relationship to the desire to bring the complaints. And as I say, it could have happened in any context. That was the context that was chosen, and it may have been, in a way, the context that was, as you say, the most inflammatory, perhaps, because of the party aspect.
One of the most high-profile examples in recent years in the corporate scene is Mark Hurd at HP. Partly there was obviously harassment allegations in the mix, but there were also allegations around ethics, which I think a lot of people would say is a different kind of kettle of fish altogether. In that case, HP clearly paid a significant price in market value. I mean, the cost of getting rid of Mark Hurd to this day is a blow to HP. From an employer's point of view, do you think they handled that they were pretty hasty, I guess, in sort of saying, all right, we're going to be done with you because we can't afford any taint. And in the end, they paid a huge price for it.
Yeah, well, it's hard to know the details of that particular case because obviously I'm not apprised of all the details. What I do understand is that it was, in fact, the issue arose as a result of the investigation. What I can say, though, is that employers need, again, to have a vision, including a vision potentially of rehabilitating the organization after there's been false allegations. So there has to be a vision in advance, and it can't be just to sweep things under the rug if an employer wants to avoid the publicity, because sweeping things under the rug isn't a great way to clean a house.
Yeah.
And I think employers take the wrong tact at times. You have to be upfront. You have to own things as an organization. I think that was the failure in part of the mismanagement of Matthews Dinsdale, is that they didn't own this and they didn't deal with it up front.
In the case of the IMF, again, we don't know any of the facts. We assume innocence all around. There was, though, this previous affair that everybody agreed was sort of an unfortunate incident and shouldn't have happened. Do you think that's a systemic failure on their part to take a look and say, you know, what do we have in place to make sure that our top guy is behaving the way he should behave?
Yeah, and those can be policies and rules of conduct, and people need to be told in advance what things are acceptable and what aren't acceptable. And an organization, again, needs to have a vision about those things. One of the things I certainly don't want to do is be seen to be discouraging good faith sexual harassment complaints. Right. That's not what I'm all about. But I also want to discourage bad faith complaints. And so an organization needs to have a balance and needs to have a vision for how it can encourage those good faith complaints, but at the same time being cognizant that there can be bad faith complaints as well.
It's an important perspective. David, appreciate you here for this.
It was very nice to have the time to meet with you.
David Cowling, partner at Johnston Daniels and Cowling.